Hello, and welcome to the 20th episode of KRAD COVID Readings. I'm Keith R.A. DeCandido, and we are celebrating not only the 20th episode of the readings, but also reaching our 80th subscriber. Thank you, subscribers. And we are celebrating this by going back to one of probably the license that I have done the most work on that isn't Star Trek. Obviously, most of the tie-in work I've done over the years has been in the Star Trek universe, but a close second is FARSCAPE. FARSCAPE is a show that debuted on the Sci-Fi Channel back in 1999. It starred Ben Browder and Claudia Black and Virginia Hay, Anthony Simcoe, and a bunch of others. And it was created by Rockne O'Bannon and produced by the Jim Henson Company. And Rockne, among other things, is currently the showrunner for Evil, and he also created a bunch of other nifty shows over the years. And the show ran for 4 years on Sci-Fi and then had a follow-up miniseries called The Peacekeeper Wars. While the show was on the air, there were 3 tie-in novels, of which I wrote one, which was called House of Cards. I also wrote 3 short stories in the universe, one of which appeared in the FARSCAPE role-playing game, and the other 2 of which appeared in FARSCAPE, the official magazine, which was published by Titan, while the show was on the air as well. Also, after the show went off the air, I co-wrote with Rockne the comic books produced by Boom Studios, which picked up where the show left off. So we picked up right after the Peacekeeper Wars and basically did season 5 of the show in comic book form. That ran for 3 years and was tremendous fun to do. I really enjoyed working in the FARSCAPE universe, which did a wonderful job of updating the classic Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers type story of a contemporary human who finds himself in a science fictional setting. In this case, an astronaut named John Crichton who gets shot halfway across the galaxy through a wormhole and has adventures with a bunch of aliens. And anyhow, this is my story, which appeared in FARSCAPE magazine issue number 1. It was later reprinted in the collection of the miniseries D'ARGO'S Lament, which is a miniseries that I wrote as part of my duties doing FARSCAPE comics for Boom. The story in D'ARGO'S Lament is sort of a sequel to this short story, sort of. And so when we did the trade paperback, we were able to reprint it. It is called Many a Mile to Freedom. And here it is. While stuffing a handful of worms into his lower mouth with his upper right arm, Zuckerberg ran the hand of his lower left arm over a sensor. He spoke with his upper mouth. "Let him in." A portion of the wall dissolved, and Mustars entered. Mustars was scanned as he approached. Zuckerberg turned 3 of his 6 eyes to his computer screen for the results. As expected, Mustars only carried the usual contraband. He was Zuckerberg's most trusted lieutenant, but anyone who entered Zuckerberg's presence was scanned. "Speak," Zuckerberg said. Mustars reached inside one of the folds of his skin and pulled out a pouch that jangled with the sound of coins. "I have today's receipts from the various gambling endeavors, great Zuckerberg, as well as the percentages from Sierrap's last 3 robberies, and the quarterly payoffs from Ministers Repmek and Nunabo." Zuckerberg took the pouch with his lower left arm. He emptied it into a small container next to the cushions on which he rested his corpulent form. "Excellent." Keeping 2 eyes on the computer screen that tallied the amount of coins, he fixed the other 4 on Mustars. "Anything else?" "Yes, great Zuckerberg, there is. Do you remember a beacon that circulated about a cycle and a half ago or so regarding 3 fugitives that had escaped peacekeeper custody?" All 4 of Zuckerberg's stomachs rumbled in annoyance. "Of course not." Mustars bowed. "My apologies, great Zuckerberg. I simply did not wish to insult your magnificence by replaying the beacon, if you recalled it. With your kind and benevolent permission, I will." "Mustars, if you don't stop sucking up, I'll have you flayed. You're giving me a headache." Mustars bowed. He retrieved a control from within the folds of his skin and pushed a button. The holographic image of a Sebastian in a peacekeeper captain's uniform appeared in the center of the room. Zuckerberg chewed on some maggots as he watched. "Attention, there are fugitives among you. Fugitives that can be worth a great deal to any one of you. I am Captain Bylaw Crace, and I am offering a substantial reward to anyone who can assist us in the recapture of 3 escaped prisoners. The image changed to a male Luxon with a general's tattoos, quickly followed by images of a Delvian woman and a Hynerian male. The first is a Luxon male named D'ARGO. The second, a Delvian female, is named Pa'u Zoto Zan. The third is a Hynerian who styles himself Rigel 16. These 3 fugitives form from Peacekeeper Turn it off, Zottgerg said. Mustars did so, and the image faded. I remember. It's useless now. Captain Crace is also a fugitive. True, but these 3 are still escaped prisoners. I think it's safe to say that the peacekeepers will pay a handy sum for their return. The computer finished tallying the coins and beeped a telltale alarm. The tally is low, Zottgerg said. Why? Sierp was misinformed about one of the merchants he robbed. The take was smaller than expected. The truth of this was verified independently, although we did remove one of Sierp's claws for his gullibility. Nodding his approval, Zottgerg returned to the prior subject. Why should I care about peacekeepers? They have no say here. The peacekeepers had tried to sell their military services on Itrahad once before, not realizing that Zottgerg controlled all enterprises on the planet. They were sent packing, and Zottgerg had made sure that the military had standing orders to fire on any peacekeeper vessel that came within Itrahadish space. Mustar still held the control in his hand. He pushed a button. Another holographic image appeared, but this time it showed the inside of Zottgerg's dungeon. Inside the cell were the Hynerian and the Delvian from the Wanted Beacon. Zottgerg smiled with both of his mouths. They were attempting to negotiate the purchase of some spare pots and herbs, Mustar said. Irit recognized them from the beacon and had them tailed. Once she confirmed their identities, she informed me, and I had them taken into custody. The Delvian put up much more of a fight than expected, actually, though she surrendered when we threatened the Hynerian. Who is Irit? One of my newer people. She's only a runner. Promote her. Of course, great Zottgerg. Tell General Rachnas to lift the ban on peacekeeper ships, then send a message to the peacekeepers. Again, Mustars bowed, as the great Zottgerg commands. He straightened. One other thing. I'm afraid that Doktaj has died. Damn! Zottgerg cried with both mouths. How? Zottgerg rarely troubled himself with the well-being of his slaves, but Doktaj was one of the better ones. It seems she committed suicide, great Zottgerg. Damn, he repeated, this time with only one mouth, consoling himself by drinking some Raslak with the other. She was the first slave to properly massage my boils. The neuters who guarded her have had their eyes removed in punishment for allowing this. Insufficient. Have them killed. It means we will have to castrate 2 more guards, great Zottgerg. Zottgerg simply regarded Mustars with all 6 eyes. Another bow. Of course, great Zottgerg. Shall I put out a call for a new slave? Yes. Leave me. Time for my nap. The wall again melted, and Mustars left. Zottgerg ran the hand of his lower left arm over a sensor. His cushions rearranged to a sleeping position, and a force field went up around his office. Even the assassination attempts were getting boring. The list of people who wanted Zottgerg dead was fairly lengthy, but those capable of getting past Zottgerg's very elaborate security measures were few in number. Nobody even got close. After all, at least Zottgerg imposed order. True, he had a piece of every significant business transaction, legal and illegal, on Itrahad, but if he also stemmed the tide of chaos. If he died, Itrahad would be even worse shape. Zottgerg's slave market was open for business. He was sizing up prospective replacements for Doktaj. However, an off-world idiot had made an attempt on his life under the guise of showing him off a piece of merchandise. The security system and the pulse cannons had proved their worth instantly. Next, Zottgerg said with his upper mouth, while stuffing marjoules into his lower mouth. His security team set about cleaning up the mess. A brunette Sebastian woman entered, dragging a Nabari girl into the common room via a chain that was attached to both her neck and wrists. "I heard you were looking for a slave," the Sebastian said without preamble. Zockgerg liked that. None of the obsequious nonsense that so many felt the need to waste time on before getting down to business. "I've never had a Nabari before." The Nabari lifted her head, tilted her head to the side. "Oh, really?" Her voice was a melodious purr that made Zockgerg's boils quiver. She moved closer to Zockgerg. "Then you haven't lived." "Silence, slave," the Sebastian said, yanking the chain. The Nabari stumbled and fell to the floor. A small cut marred her silvery skin. The Sebastian seemed unconcerned about injuring a slave being sold for physical pleasure. Zockgerg turned his gaze upon the seller. The arrogance, the bluntness, the complete lack of care for the merchandise. She was no slave owner. She was a peacekeeper, trying to pass herself off as a slave owner. "I'll take her." The Sebastian nodded. "Excellent. How much will you pay?" Signaling two of his guards with his upper right arm, Zockgerg said, "I said take, not buy." "I beg you." Before the Sebastian could finish, Zockgerg's guards wrapped their tentacles around her. "Take her to the cell with the prisoners, Mustars." Mustars waddled forward. "Yes, great Zockgerg." "Send a message to the peacekeepers." As he spoke, Zockgerg noticed the Nabari, now separated from the Sebastian, slowly trying to move off. "Tell them I don't like officers sneaking in. I only want real offers to pay the bounty. And tell them to work on their disguises. This one had Peacekeeper Commando written all over her." He grabbed the slack chain. "And take this one," he added, "and put her in new clothes. She is to be my new slave." The Nabari smiled. "What is your name?" She sidled closer to Zockgerg. "Chiana." "Mustars will give you the specifics. Please me and live. Displease me and die." "Sounds reasonable," Chiana said with a nod. She ran one finger along one of Zockgerg's tails. In a low whisper she said, "I'll have to do everything I can to please you, then, Zaki." Zockgerg smiled with both mouths. This girl was probably a prisoner of the peacekeepers, taken during one of the many skirmishes they'd been having with the Nabari lately. No doubt she saw this as a better opportunity. "Go with Mustars. We'll talk about how you can please me later." Chiana was massaging Zockgerg's boils when the alarm went off. Zockgerg summoned the two new neuters with one arm, while activating the security imager with another. "Isn't that a Luxon?" Chiana asked as the image of one appeared on the holographic projector, presently plowing through two of Zockgerg's guards with one of those devastating Qualta blades. "Not just a Luxon," Zockgerg said as the neuters entered. "A valuable one." To the neuters he said, "Take her to her room." As Chiana got up from the curtains, Zockgerg added, "I like you, Chiana. I hope you're not thinking of suicide." Chiana smiled sweetly. "Now, Zaki, why would I do a silly thing like that when I've still got a few boils to massage?" Laughing with his lower mouth, Zockgerg said with the upper one, "Good. Go." After the neuters led Chiana away, Zockgerg watched as D'ARGO, a victim of the standard Luxon belief that there was no problem that couldn't be solved with a frontal assault, fought his way through Zockgerg's guards before finally being overwhelmed by the superior numbers. Running a hand over a sensor, Zockgerg said, "Bring the Luxon to me." Within microts, two guards came in bracketing the Luxon, their tentacles wrapped around his arms, restraining him. His tunic was ripped, and he had several lacerations about his head and arms. The blood around those cuts was dark. "You really thought you could rescue your friends, D'ARGO? I had to try. I would not expect you to understand." "I don't, but I do salute you. Armies have attacked this stronghold and not gotten as far as you." "I do not wish your salute," D'ARGO said with a snarl. "Put him in with the others," said Zockgerg. Great Zockgerg," Mustars said quickly. "I would recommend taking him to the infirmary first. His blood is running black. He runs the danger of dying. It would be just like the peacekeepers to withhold the bounty if the merchandise is damaged." Zockgerg nodded to the guards. They dragged D'ARGO in the direction of the infirmary. Tell the peacekeepers we have all three now. Right away, great Zockgurk. And bring Chiana back. My boils itch. As soon as Zockgurk's meeting with Minister Repnek ended, Mustars entered. Did the meeting go well, great Zockgurk? Mustars asked as he handed Zockgurk a plate of grubs. Yes, the tariff cut will pass, Zockgurk said as he poured the grubs into his lower mouth. That is excellent news, great Zockgurk. I did not wish to interrupt your meeting, but a peacekeeper has arrived. He is called Captain Han. He says he's here to claim the bounty. Good. Send him in. Mustars bowed. Of course, great Zockgurk. And get Chiana back in here. Of course, great Zockgurk. Another part of the wall dissolved. Mustars gave a signal, and one of the guards led a Sebacean in. This one was male, wearing a captain's uniform of a slightly different design than the one worn by Krace in the Beacon. The scan revealed only a standard-issue Peacekeeper pistol. You must be Zockgurk. Yes, Zockgurk said. You're even more repugnant than I'd heard. Zockgurk laughed. And you are even more blunt than most peacekeepers. I don't have time for idiotic pleasantries. Unlike the sheep that populate this world of yours, I don't need to bow and scrape to you. I'm here to collect my prisoners. Bring them to me. First, we talk terms. Han smiled unpleasantly. No, first I see the prisoners to make sure this isn't some kind of elaborate trick on your part. Zockgurk laughed with both mouths. I like you, Peacekeeper, and I like your approach better than the woman's. The captain stared at Zockgurk. What woman's? After running a hand over one of the sensors on his desk, a holographic projection of the cell appeared. The Peacekeeper Commando was giving the other prisoners a wide berth. The Delvian was treating the Luxon's wounds, though his blood was now running clear. At least now he was in no danger of dying, poisoned by the toxins in his blood. I've never seen that woman before in my life. Zockgurk's mouths both frowned. She isn't one of yours? Well, she might be, but... Oh, wait a microt. Han looked up as if trying to recall something. Yes, of course. I have seen her before. She's a commando in Krace's old Plysaw regiment. Can't remember her name offhand, but as I recall, she was involved in some kind of scandal. She probably was trying to take my collar in order to get in good with command. Zockgurk's translator microbes must have had trouble with some bit of slang. What does the top of your shirt have to do with my arrest? Han said impatiently. Look, I want to see the prisoners. I don't care about the commando, but the other three are mine. The wall melted, and another guard led Chiana in. Han gave her an appreciative look. Well, a Nabari slave, eh? Very exotic. Don't get many of those grayskins out this way. How much you get for her? Get her for? She was a steal, Zockgurk said. We talk about her and my bounty after you've checked the merchandise. Good. Han followed the guards out of the chamber. Boils acting up again, Zaki? Chiana asked. Not as much, but don't let that stop you. As Chiana moved around behind him, Zockgurk looked at the projection of the cell. The Delvian had finished treating the Luxon, and both of them were glaring at the Peacekeeper woman. It took him a moment to realize who was missing. Where's the Hynerian? He bellowed with both mouths, shaking violently enough to knock Chiana off the cushions and onto the floor. With one hand, he pressed the alarm. With another, the intercom. With a third, he poured some Raslac down his lower mouth, and with a fourth, he activated the force field around his office. Alarms rang, guards scurried, and Zockgurk drank more Raslac. From the moment the alarm started ringing, the Luxon and the Delvian exchanged concerned glances. The Peacekeeper woman didn't seem to care. Report immediately, Zockgurk bellowed. Several guards replied with variations on nothing to report or still looking. Then Han's face showed up on one of the projections. I've got him! The captain was holding the Hynerian by his thick neck. With the other hand, he held up some thin pieces of metal. He had these on him. So nice to see your people did a proper search of his person, he said with an acid tone. Let go of me, you yots! The Hynerian spluttered. I am Dominar Rigel the 16th, and I demand you're in exile, you little trog, and a prisoner of the Peacekeepers. All of Zockgurk's stomachs rumbled. The Hynerian should have been better searched. He's not your prisoner yet. Have the guards bring him back. Fine. I'll hang on to these. Han handed Rigel to one of the guards who had just arrived. He wrapped his tentacles around the Hynerian's stomach and took him back to his cell. Han, meanwhile, looked pensive. I assume that you confiscated the personal items of all the prisoners?
Yes.
I wish to see them as well. Take him, Zockgerg said to a guard. Zockgerg had the security cameras follow Han to the storage room where the guards had put the Luxon's sword, the Peacekeeper's pistol, the Hynerian's throne sled, and the Delvian's pouch full of herbs. Chiana, meanwhile, went back to massaging Zockgerg's boils, which relaxed him right away. She does this even better than Doktaj, he thought through a haze of pleasure. Most of his eyes closed as he relaxed, but he kept one open to watch Captain Han. The prisoner's personal effects were on a shelf in the storage room. Han inspected each one, then placed the Hynerian's lockpicks in the center. Suddenly, an electrical charge linked the Luxon blade, the lockpicks, and the Peacekeeper pistol. Then the screen went dark. So did the lights in Zockgerg's office, and every panel on his desk. "What the frell is happening?" he cried with both mouths. Silence greeted his cry. None of his communication systems seemed to be functioning, nor any other system. Even the emergency lights wouldn't come on, and since both suns were setting, only minimal light was visible through the window. Chiana came around from behind him. Her silvery skin looked even more beautiful in the half-light. "Chiana, I've got to..." Before he could finish speaking, Chiana poured the Raslak into one of the nostrils on his torso. As Zockgerg struggled to breathe, Chiana leapt on his top of his thorax. Her knees dug into the flesh over his larynx. Zockgerg tried to speak, but couldn't. Chiana grabbed a knife from the table and sliced into several of his boils. "I stopped being a slave a long time ago, Zaki." Zockgerg's vision faded to black for the last time. His last thought was, she had been such a good slave. "We're clear of Itrahad's atmosphere. Pilot, we ought to be in range of the docking web in a quarter of an arm." "Very well, Commander Crichton. Moya will be ready to starburst as soon as you arrive. While we did try to block Zockgerg's transmissions to the Peacekeepers, it is possible that one made through to Scorpius's command carrier, or another Peacekeeper base or ship. We would do well to be away from here as fast as possible." "Understood, pilot. And hey, good flying there, Aaron." "Thank you, Crichton. Or should I say Captain Han? Your impersonation of a Peacekeeper was almost credible." "Gee, thanks. Of course I had to do a little extra dancing thanks to Buckwheat here. You were supposed to follow the plan, Rigel." "I was never consulted on this plan. Besides, when Aaron brought the lockpicks, I assumed it was so I could escape." "Would that be before or after I explained that you were supposed to let Crichton find them on you when he inspected the cell?" "I thought it was a bad plan, Aaron, so I improvised a new one." "Your new plan might have gotten us killed. Crichton's plan was frelled enough." "Gee, thanks for the vote of confidence. It worked, didn't it?" "Barely. The Luxon's right. My throne sled still doesn't work." "We'll fix it on the ship, Sparky. That little gadget I put together gave off an electromagnetic pulse. It shut down all the electronics in Zockgerg's HQ, including your little toy." "It was a very clever idea, John, to smuggle in the device in separate pieces like that to avoid detection by Zockgerg security." "Only way to do it, Zan. I'm just glad it worked when I put them together." "Speaking of following the plan, Pip, you were already free from Zockgerg when we got to you. How'd you do that?" "Oh, it was easy. I just brought him to boil." The end. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. That story was reprinted, as I said, in D'ARGO'S Lament, which has a sequel to that where we find out just how bad things get on Itrahad after Zockgerg dies. And there's also D'ARGO's Trial and D'ARGO's Quest, as well as the main Farscape comics. There were 3 miniseries, The Beginning of the End of the Beginning, Strange Detractors, and Gone and Back, which was then followed by an ongoing series that lasted for 24 issues. Check them out if you can track them down. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Click on the little bell so you can get updates whenever there's a new video released. Please check me out online at dekendido.net. My blog is at dekendido.wordpress.com. And please support my Patreon at patreon.com/krad. There's a whole bunch of new material up there right now. There's 4 new movie reviews, some new TV reviews, including one of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. I've got some vignettes coming featuring my original characters. You should definitely check them out. Again, thank you, and please stay safe.